The hour of 7 o'clock having arrived, I'm going to call the council to order. Let the roll reflect that all council members are present and a quorum has been established. Tonight we have a special presentation from Mary Scheide from the Pleasant Hill Library with an update. Mary, welcome to the meeting. Nice to have you here again.
Mayor Hicks, thank you, council members and city staff. I'm here this evening to share information about Summer at the Library. Our 2018 summer reading program kicks off this Wednesday on June 6th. And the program has been redesigned this year as Summer Discovery and features a nature theme. Summer Discovery is a way for young people to prevent summer slide. That's the loss of academic skills over the summer that can set students back when they return to school. And kids can actually lose up to 2 months of their learning during the summer. So those who participate in the library, our summer reading program, are less likely to lose that ground. In the material that you have in front of you, you'll find a flyer that's tucked inside the large program guide. The flyer highlights some of our youth programs, and I emphasize it's just some of them, that are happening specifically here in Hastings at Pleasant Hill Library. And on the back side of it is general information about the summer reading program. All the library programs are free, as you know. Some of them do require registration, so we ask people to place special note to that. The full program guide features programs and activities that are happening all around the Dakota County Library System, so that's Hastings and the other 8 branches in our system. We have 3 registration options for young people participating in Summer Discovery, and that depends on their reading level and their age, and that's really up to the parent and caregiver to decide with their child which one they want to participate in. There's a pre-reader, an independent reader, and a teen program. And in each level, young people complete activities and win free books. So what could be better than that? For example, this is the independent reader. They get a log that looks like this, and this is their idea tree, which features all kinds of leaves on it. It gives them some ideas of what they might do for activities, or they can fill in their own, but they might read a book about an animal or visit a local park. Lots of things based on the nature theme, but they can do whatever they want. When they complete 15 of them, then they can come in and pick out a free book. And they get to choose what they want. So we have a whole cart full of books, and it's important for the young people to make their own selection about what they want to read during the summer. Also, the children's area at Pleasant Hill will have a summer discovery zone, which will include self-directed nature crafts and experiments. We'll have something different every week, a make and take activity, and things that they can do in the library when they're there with their friends, with their family. Our Summer Discovery Kickoff Party, which is sponsored by our very generous Friends of the Pleasant Hill Library, is set for Tuesday, June 12th. We have a session in the morning from 10:30 until noon, and we repeat it again in the evening for families that aren't able to make it there during the day. We have ice cream, we have Carpenter Nature Center visiting with live animals, all kinds of other activities and crafts, so we invite everybody to come out for that. We have hundreds of people that attend that every year. About 20 Hastings teens have volunteered to help us this summer, so they'll be signing up their younger friends for summer reading, and they'll be helping with activities all summer long. And new this year, we have an online component for summer reading, so families can take the summer reading program wherever they go and participate online, and that's just another addition this year. The library will be out and about in Hastings all summer. We'll be at Rivertown Days. We'll be at the Farmers Market. We're doing 5 different story times in the park at the Rotary Pavilion. So we hope to see people there. And just as a reminder, summer is a great time for all ages. It's not just for young people. So we have a number of activities and programs for adults as well. We encourage everybody to pick up a copy of our program guide, and all the updates are available on our website at dakotacounty.us/library. So with that, I will take any questions that you might have.
Okay. Councilor, is there any questions or comments? Councilmember Vaughn?
Thank you. Thanks, Mary. I'm just more curious, how about the construction? Does that interfere with this quarter, or will that be later?
It does not interfere with the summer reading program at all. Right now, our target that we've been told is October for closing.
Okay.
Don't
Thank
have a specific date yet, but October.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mary. Appreciate your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck this summer.
Thanks.
Okay, council, we have the minutes before the city council, the regular city council meeting and workshop on May 21, 2018. Any additions or corrections to the minutes of that meeting, those meetings? Seeing none, they stand approved. We have council items to be considered. Any council items to be considered? Seeing none, we got consent agenda. Councilmember Vaughn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to pull number 5 from the consent agenda.
Okay, number 5 from the consent agenda, approve advanced reservation notice program. We'll put that at number 2 under administration.
Thank you.
Okay? Councilmember Balsanic?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to pull item 2 off of the consent agenda on approving tobacco license.
Okay, we'll put number 2, number 3 under administration. Okay? All right, council, motion to adjourn, I wish. Motion to accept the consent agenda as amended. Councilmember Liefeld makes that motion, seconded by Councilmember Brox. That motion is now before the body. All those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Now we'll go to a resolution to amended site plan at Wise Funeral Home, 400 Spring Street. John, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I'm going to put up a map here in just a moment on a project that may be familiar to you. It's the Wise Funeral Home, and here we go. We approved the site plan and for the parking lot and the crematory addition a short while ago. And they're proposing a slight change to it that we wanted to come back to City Council and get your authorization for that. The site again is located at 400 Spring Street. You have the existing building here, the existing parking lot at this location. What's being proposed is an expansion to the parking lot. That was approved previously and is unchanged. What has changed is this proposed building addition, which is located just north of the existing building towards 4th Street. Originally, the building brought before council was 28 by 14 feet, and now it is 28 by 33. So essentially, the building that you see here is what's proposed today. What was proposed originally was about half of this size. They're looking at building some extra garage space as part of that. You can see on this image right here, this driveway area would be a garage door going from this proposed building addition internally to their driveway and out to 4th Street. So there wouldn't be any additional external connections to 4th Street from this building itself. It would lead to the removal of a couple of trees here, and they would need to follow the tree preservation guidelines on that. This would be an image of what it would look like. This was the approved proposal, and this would be the revised proposal that you see here with the garage door facing to the west. So that would conclude what the changes would be. There's no other changes to the conditions we approved previously, and we are recommending approval of that at this time. And I can stand for any questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, John. Council, this issue is before us. What's your wish? Councilmember Liefeld? Please.
John, question on that, since this is your specialty, I assume that set back everything from the road. I notice, I go by there every day on my way when I come down here. There's that little side lot, which is that going to be removed on 4th Street side? And then I just want to make sure the measurements, everything from 4th Street, it's as far off the road as it needs to be. It doesn't.
Sure. Yeah, with the measurements off of 4th Street, the garage addition that was approved in April is no different than today, and it would meet the requirements on that.
Perfect. Thanks, John.
Sure.
Any further discussion, council? Okay, I'll take a motion. Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Your Honor. So, John, are they going to put up any shrubbery or anything like that? I mean, at least when they had the existing trees around it, it kind of, provided a little bit of a screening effect, for what the building is actually meant for. And so I was just curious if they're going to attempt to put any other kind of shrubs around it just to try to help mask.
Sure, with the landscaping, I believe there's, I mean, you have existing landscaping, as you can see here. Some of the, a couple of those trees would be gone. And then, Greg, on the landscape plan, there's some other plantings in this area as well, is that correct? Yeah. Yeah, so 4 more trees that would be added in that area.
Okay. Councilmember Balsanic. Councilmember Balsanic makes a motion to approve, seconded by Councilmember Vaughn. That motion is before the body. Is there any further discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have the special events policy. Julie, welcome to the meeting. Glad to
Thank
have you
you.
here.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Tonight, you're asked to adopt the special events policy for events that require city services and that are held on public property. In 2017, we had 15 events that required city services to make their events successful, and these vary in size and demand for resources. Some of the city services might include road closures, signage, police officers or reservists that do traffic control and security. So the administrative committee of the council, chaired by Councilmember Brox with Councilmembers London, Liefeld, met to offer guidance on support for what kind of support city would provide to these events and the organizers. So the resulting policy before you includes a 4-tier system, which will assist the staff when event organizers call us, and often we're asked, can maybe kind of waive fees or what we have to charge for. So this will help us very clearly know where an event lies in the policy. So the different tiers range from 100% of the charges would be covered for large events like Rivertown Days, the car shows, to 50% for some charity events, and then we would require for-profit events to pay 100% of the city services they use. The policy also provides that for any event we've had in the last 12 months, right now we're working to gather the data on what services we have provided, and we would provide that same level of support without charging them. So if we had a fun run last year that required 10 reservists and we closed the streets, that would stay the same. They would not be charged for that. If the scope got bigger and the size got bigger and now it took 20 reservists, they would pay that incremental 50% for the cost of that additional service. Like I said, we're working to gather that information right now. So the policy, as recommended by the administrative committee, really affords that almost every event will have some sort of discount for city services. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Council, this item is before us. I just want to take the opportunity to thank staff and the committee for doing a fine job. This is not an easy subject to tackle, and I think there were some good reasons. And Councilmember Brox, I'll recognize you.
As the administrative committee chair, I just wanted to recognize the work that staff did and also say that the committee was looking for some objective criteria that are not a determination of whether or not any community event was valid, because we believe that all community events that involve the public and members of the community of Hastings are valid and wonderful events. So our goal was not to make a judgment on the content of any event, but more to create a guideline that would be clear so that when our staff gets a request, that they could easily look at the criteria and fit an event into one of these tiers. So we had a lot of discussion about what the tiers should be called and what the criteria should be, and so we have spent a fair amount of time and energy looking at this policy and a number of discussions. That doesn't mean it's perfect or that it couldn't be subject to some changes, but we just wanted to put forth a policy that was clear and objective and would be easy to apply, so that was the goal.
I think you succeeded. Councilmember Liefeld?
Just to clarify, I may have misunderstood you at the beginning. The administrative committee is Councilmembers Brox, London, Fulch.
Oh, I
Not Liefeld.
apologize. I said you.
Thank you. Just to clarify, my ears perked up and I'm like, I missed that meeting.
My
So,
apologies.
no, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Vaughn.
Thank you. Thanks to the committee for all the work, too. I'm still a little hung up on this. I get really concerned. We have fees for a reason, is to pay, because we have expenses. I'm very cautious about allowing people to say, well, I think you should waive the fee. Well, why are we having fees if we're just going to keep getting asked to be waived or be put into a different tier? I mean, one of the lines I read here was under Tier 1, demonstrating an ongoing community value. Who's the judge of that? I'd have to respond to another resident that says, I didn't use that event. I don't see the value in it. we as council are probably gonna be that value or has that place where we put them into a tier. I get very concerned about it. I'm okay going forward. I think it's a good framework, but I'm getting really concerned about us slotting things into where we should be. If we have fees for a reason, there's an expense, and then we should be educating the public. There's a reason we're doing the fees is because we have an expense that goes with it. Otherwise, we raise taxes and we pay for that service. That's my only concern. I just use a baseball term as an example. If we have waive the fees out at the ball fields, but they use a school district, are they asking the school district to waive the fees? It's just not, it's not continuous. I'm a little concerned about the different, we're still gonna be in the same situation, and 15 vents in 2017 is kind of a lot on public property. But I just think we're setting ourselves up for a continued process that we're already doing anyways. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Brox.
So this is the idea of it, and I don't know if it accomplishes the goal, but the idea is that if it is a public event, if it's open to members of the public, that it would be accessible, and that would be something that the city would be involved in. If it's closed and it's something where you have to be admitted, at least that's what I kind of see the theme amongst these tiers is if it's a public event and it's on public property, then we automatically have a role in some ways, whether we like it or not. So the idea was to kind of know what's going on our property, and then also to capture some of that extra cost where we're expending resources. So I think that distinction between public and private event was kind of one of the major points of the policy, which addresses some of that, maybe not fully, but that was the sort of the broad line that we were trying to draw in the sand.
Councilmember Vaughn.
Just to follow up, thank you, and I agree. I mean, in my livelihood, my day job, this is what I deal with, and what I'm worried about is next thing you know, we'll be a co-sponsor. Let's get the city involved, so the city is one of the partners, and next thing you know, hey, city, you should waive the fees because you're part of the partnership. I already read that on coming up on an event down there, that this is a great event, the city's involved, and next thing you know, we're gonna be waiving fees. We're setting ourselves up. That's the only thing I'm worried about, and I get it. We should start somewhere, but I'm gonna ask that we just continue to keep watching this one and review it again in 2018. How much did it help us, or are we just creating more work for us? That's what I'm worried about.
Councilmember Lund.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think, you know, in a perfect world, yeah, we would just, you know, it's just here's the fee schedule and whatnot. We're in a situation where we have not done that, right? So that's a challenging thing to flip the switch on something like that anyway. This helps mitigate that issue a little bit, not to penalize events that have been going on for a long time that all of a sudden haven't been prepared for such a thing. It is, I agree with you, it is the wording, I don't have it up here, but you know, the general good impact to the community or whatever the exact wording is. How do you define that? It's a little bit squishy, but to Councilmember Brock's point, this is about kind of separating public, private. I'd say it goes beyond that because even private events have value. I think all special events have some sort of inherent benefit that to the greater good, even if it's for profit or whatever. And so what this allows the city staff, because this is about the city staff, allows them to do is reference something that says, okay, I acknowledge that all of these events have value. And what I'm not going to do is say this one's better than this one or whatnot. It's how do you qualify for, which category do you qualify for? So no, it's not perfect, but I think the tiers at least allow somewhat of the, avoiding some of the issues that you're saying is, you know, to be 100%, you have to be a long-standing, budgeted for, we're planning a year in advance kind of thing. You know, it's a high threshold to meet, and these are, surprisingly, there's 15 events, and some of them are small, some of them are bigger, and they do cost a lot of money. And we don't want to be just shelling that out, you know, without having some sort of good reasoning. And so hopefully what this does is, yeah, this is a starting point, and like Councilmember Brock said, you know, we can revisit it and add or subtract some of the language that maybe is better fitting after we've had it in place at least a year to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'll seek a motion to put on, at least on the floor. Councilmember Brox makes that motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Fulch. That motion is now before the body. Further discussion on the motion. Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. Two quick things. When we were going through this, I myself had questions about how it would work, you know, if we had agreements that would be put in place with these organizations, or if there's insurance requirements that would be required for, you know, particularly if you had like a tier 1 event that's, you know, at a much larger scale. And so I'm not sure if that's administratively being addressed someplace else, but I'd just like to bring up that issue again, that it should be a little bit more clear as to what the requirements would be on, you know, the side of if we were gonna give those status, just, you know, something to consider. And then the second issue that I got to thinking about when we were going through this was the police reservists, and how a few months ago when we had the recognition event for the police reservists, and it was really time well spent to sit and chat with those folks. And what was interesting is that I was told that before we had the Great Recession, the police reservists used to be compensated at least a little bit, you know, for their time. And then after, when we were having budget problems, that that compensation was removed, and that they're no longer compensated for their time. And I didn't realize that they are true volunteers, that they aren't compensated at all. And then when I was reading this, I thought it was interesting for tier 1 and then maybe for tier 2 that we would provide police to reservists, and then blocking of streets and barricades, et cetera. And so it just got me to thinking about how we are committing volunteers from the city. And so I just bring it up, and we don't have to answer it now, but I just would like to have the council consider further when we're talking about finances and budgets, you know, later on, about if something could be, you know, a small stipend or, you know, some kind of token could be provided to the police reservists, because when I was having those conversations, they also said that their numbers have gone down significantly since that stipend had been removed. And they're such a tremendous, you know, service to our city, and God bless them for the dedication that they are putting forth, because, you know, I mean, they still could be hurt just like a real, you know, police officer if something actually, you know, happened. And so, so like I said, we don't have to have a big conversation about it now, but I just like to bring it up because it's kind of germane to special events and how we're dedicating their time, you know, to these events in the future.
Let me just say, I don't recall a stipend. Maybe it was before my, how did that work?
Your Honor and Council, thank you. Councilmember Fulch is correct that reservists used to be paid. However, the program was changed not as a result of the recession, but as a result of the chief's recommendation. Generally, reservists are a volunteer position. And what happened is, instead of, we didn't cut the budget, we reallocated those resources that had been paid, that had been used for the reservists from a compensation standpoint, and we reinvested those into additional equipment, including vehicles and training and uniforms. So the budget essentially is the same, but we just reallocated that in alignment with what many other programs have for reservists. Thank you.
That's what I recall. The money went in there, yeah. Okay, just to get a clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, is there, we do have a motion. Is there further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Next on the administration portion is number 5 from the consent agenda, approve advanced resignation notice program. Councilmember Vaughn.
Thank you, Your Honor. The reason I pulled this, I just need a little more information, and I just wonder if it needs a little more work. But at first, I was taken back as a public employees. I just didn't know we should be giving out stipends to public employees for, it seems like a private sector use tactic versus a public sector. And I get concerned, what is it really going to cost us? Are we going to bring in, if I'm reading this right, bring in somebody early because someone's retiring, and then we're going to have 2 staff members on it for a certain amount of time? I just wanted to confirm too that all employees would be then eligible for it, meaning if if it's a union, non-union, all management, everybody is eligible for that program too, is another one of my questions. But, and are we trying to fix a problem that we have, or is it just foreseeable potential here that we see coming, that this is going to be a tool that we get to use for replacing employees that either retire or leave the city? So that was my concern. I just don't think it's needed, but I'd be curious from administration if it's a tool or something that we see coming.
Okay, Julie, can you address the issues?
Councilmember, there's a number of questions there. Help me if I forget some of them. I don't think we have a current problem. The program is designed to help with the stability of our workforce. We currently have a small number of folks, about a dozen, who remain they get an older health insurance benefit, a pre-93 employee, which requires them to give us 4 months' notice. That's really helpful for us. No other employee has that requirement. Everybody, gives their 2 weeks, and that's fine. This program isn't intended to overlap. There may be a small overlap, but if currently right now, if someone gives them a notice, they're leaving in 2 weeks, we relook at the job, we make sure we're gonna go back out with the way we want. If we have any restructuring we want to do, the hiring process takes 3-4 months, because the job is posted for 3 weeks just on the onset. So that department then is left 3-4 months without a staff person. Whereas if somebody can tell us 3 months ahead of time they're leaving, we can immediately get that job posted and have them either start simultaneously or slightly before. I think the financial impact of that is very minimal, because typically a person that leaves a job is paid at a much higher rate than somebody entering a position. So there is typically some sort of salary savings there, where if we do provide a small overlap, that would be covered.
Councilmember?
Thank you. And I get 3 to 4 months to hire somebody, but I'm wondering if we should be focusing our time on trying to find a way to streamline that. Is there a better way? I get it, we got to post, we have certain rules we have to follow, but 3 to 4 months to hire somebody, that's a good thing. If we are that tight on our labor force that we are hurting for 3 to 4 months because all the rest of the department is trying to help get us through that time, I get that. That just tells me that we're running it pretty tight. There's not a whole lot of extra labor time to fill in that position. Just want to confirm, all positions then in the city are eligible for that, but they still have to be signed off on by administration to be approved by the program. And what is the reason for administration signing off on it? If it's just an eligibility thing and someone wants to sign up for it, why do we have to even approve it? Saying, all right, you're eligible just like everybody else if you gave us a 4-month notice or whatever it was. What's the value of signing off on it? If every employee is eligible, I don't think we should really even have to sign off on it, as they're part of the program.
The administration signs off on it, not council.
Right.
But I think, like I said, though, previously, with every time a position or a person leaves the city, we take that as an opportunity to look and say, we may have had somebody in that position for 25 years. Is that still the right structure? We work with the department head, we redo the job description and make it more current. That typically involves administration, having a bigger look at the bigger picture of the city. Are we then able to combine some positions and do some different things? It's not so much that we're approving that person, we need to know about it. It's eligible for everyone in the city, with the exception of seasonal folks and our paid-on-call volunteer folks.
Personally, I'm still saying that's a private sector maneuver, and in the public sector, I'm hoping we have good public employees that give an FYI, I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna retire. But I get it, when people quit, that's just, they put in their 2-week notice. That's kind of I'm assuming they're responsible to give us a 2-week notice, but they don't have to, or do they?
I think we have certain things in our personnel policy that talk about whether or not they're eligible to relieve all of their accrued leave payouts if they do not provide a 2-week notice to us.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I think, I think this is as a tool for a positive benefit. One of the things is this is totally voluntary. I mean, no one's being forced to join it. No one's forced to be a part of it. And if they don't want to be a part of it, they don't have to be a part of it. But if they see a value, I am going to be going in 3 months, and I'm going to take advantage of the program, have that incentive, so we can begin to plan for that workforce determination. I think that's a good thing. And I know some people always say government should run more like a business. I don't necessarily agree with that philosophy, because there's 2 different main functions for that. But I think it's kind of forward thinking, and again, it's totally voluntary, and it'll be up to that employee. Councilmember Lund.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is the primary purpose of this to get a better heads up for people that are retiring or leaving the workforce, or is it, for people that are just moving on to other opportunities? Because, and the reason I ask that is, I don't know, I've changed jobs, in the past few years, and I could never possibly give 90 days, let alone 100. I would love to be able to know that in advance, but you're hired, when can you start? Not, I'm going to hang out for $50 or $500 so that I can, start in 3 months. That doesn't really often work if you're just changing jobs, right? So think about if it takes 3 months for us to hire somebody and they say, okay, but I have to start in 3 months, then that's 6 months for us if they have the same policy on the other end. So I would assume that this is more on the case of, I know my time is done here, I'm probably going to retire, and that's the main benefit, because you're replacing somebody with a lot of experience, and it's going to be harder to replace that type of person, and that's why, and also that transition period. But if that's not the primary focus, then I would ask to rethink the amount of time. 90 days being the minimum seems like that'd be the maximum to me. But
Councilmember, I think that more than likely the folks that we will get will be exactly like you said. Folks that know that they're pending a retirement coming up, that have a lot of experience, that we really want to bridge that gap for how long our departments are running short of staff.
makes sense. Thank you.
Councilmember Lightfoot.
Thank you. Julie, so a couple of questions. Based on what Trevor had said, in order to be eligible, you have to have been here 3 years. You gain quite a bit of knowledge after 3 years of working in any office, any department. So just to have the experience of that individual to be able to train them in is huge. What I wouldn't give to have an outgoing employee train their replacement, it would take an awful lot off of my plate, as a manager. So I think when I look at it from people who are either retiring or moving, you're going to be leaving the state. That's not something you generally do spur of the moment. So this could come up. So I don't really see any issues there. I do have one question about the notice of leave. A notice of the use of the leave. So if the city is reserving the right to approve or deny requests, I give you 180 days because I want $1,500. So you have the right to refuse my vacation time that I've accrued. If you refuse it, I'm getting paid out at the end for it still, correct? That's not changed. But you would have reserved the right for a 6-month period to deny me time off.
I think we always have that right, but what we want to stress, and we modeled this policy after a number of other cities and the DCC that have adopted a similar policy, is we don't want somebody to take their last 3 weeks off.
Absolutely.
That doesn't provide us any value.
And this definitely, I think we're putting ourselves in a position to say, we're going to lose a valuable employee. We want to use that experience to train the next person. Based on the leave issues that I had questions on, you've answered that. It seems to be a very proactive thing that I'd love to be able to do myself.
Okay, I think we're becoming fully informed, council. I'll seek a motion. Councilmember Lightfoot makes a motion to approve. Second it. Councilmember Balsanic seconds that motion. Is there further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. And then next we have number 2, pulled off consent, the resolution to approve the tobacco license for Rudy's at the Pines. Councilmember Balsanic.
Thank you, Your Honor. I asked this to be pulled off the consent agenda, not to speak against the licensing for Rudy's, but to perhaps use this as an introduction to see whether or not the council would be interested in raising the legal age for purchasing tobacco in the city. I'm mentioning this because there are a number of cities around the state that are raising the limit to age 21. And I'd like us to be progressive in that. So I'm just wondering whether the council would like to, obviously, we can't vote on this because it would be an ordinance, but whether we would like staff to prepare some information and pass it along to the appropriate council committee.
Okay, Councilmember Vaughn?
This reminds me of the sexual predator issue that we just went through. If a number of cities are going through it, I think it's up to our city staff to talk to the League of Minnesota Cities. It's a state issue. And I really think we as a body shouldn't be getting into this one. We should be talking to our state legislators. If it's a state issue, I personally think this is a state discussion, I don't think it should be coming to each city like it's been doing. So that's my 2 cents.
Councilmember Balsanic?
And thank you, Councilmember Vaughn. I have to agree with you to a certain extent. It's like, you know, plastic bags versus paper bags. There are all kinds of things that would be better served if they were at the state level. But nevertheless, there are communities that are doing this. And it just seems like it could be appropriate if the council wants to do this.
Well, Councilmember Liefeld?
Councilmember Balsanic, when I read through this agenda for this evening, that exact thought popped into my mind about what we've been seeing happen in other cities. So thank you for bringing it up. I would like to, as a council member, put that to committee so it's something we can look into. I'm going to respectfully disagree with Councilmember Vaughn when we talk about it at the level of the sex offender restrictions. Oftentimes we want things to happen at a federal level or at a state level, and they just don't. And in order to take a stand and to tell them what it is we want and what the people in their state and their communities want, sometimes we as a city have to stand up and do something that might seem a little bit out of your yard. But I feel like it's how we as city elected officials let people above us know this is what we're thinking. This is how we feel. And if correct me if I'm wrong, everything I've read on Edina, the other cities who are doing this, it's up to the merchants as to whether or not they're going to follow, because it's not a state recognized mandate. So I guess I understood it that as a city, Edina is saying, we would like you to do this. You know, Cub, Super America, Holiday, M&H, Quick Trip, we would like you to do this. I understood that there isn't a firm, fast law that says they're required to follow that. And I may be incorrect on that. Yeah, so my point to that would be, it's just at a city level, it's us saying, you know, we're concerned about our youth, we're concerned about, you know, the smoking statistics. So I would like to agree with you, Councilmember Balsanic, and I don't think it affects this. It was an excellent time to bring it up. I'd like to, you know, see that we move on to the tobacco licensing for Rudy's, but absolutely, I would like to see a further conversation and would love to be part of that. Thank you, Councilmember.
Council, let me make a suggestion, and I'll let people speak to it, but I think what we should do is think about it, and then at the next council meeting, under announcements, Councilmember Balsanic, bring it up under announcements. There have been times where we've talked about issues brought up under announcements as part of new business or whatever, and suggest that this be sent to a committee and we can find out at that point. So maybe, you know, give us 2 weeks to think about it, and then if you bring that subject up in 2 weeks, we can discharge whether or not we want to go that to a committee. That way we can handle the tobacco license for Rudy's. Councilmember Balsanic?
Thank you, Your Honor. That being said, I do appreciate the suggestion, and being that I enjoy a good cigar during a round of golf,
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to approve this item on the agenda.
Okay, Councilmember Balsanic makes a motion to approve the tobacco license for Rudy's. Is there a second to that motion? Second to that motion. Second, Councilmember Lund. Discussion, and I will allow council to weigh in. I don't want to cut off debate necessarily. Councilmember Brox.
I just have questions. I don't really have a position, as I haven't thought about this extensively. But I don't really understand the idea of creating an ordinance that's a strong suggestion. Could you explain to me, maybe Dan, what the value is in creating an ordinance that's a strong suggestion to merchants?
Thank you, Councilmember. I'm not very well informed on the subject of what the
Fair
other
enough.
cities are doing, so I'll fully acknowledge that. I don't know if there's some type of incentive or something that's offered in those cities or something like that. But yes, I generally think if there isn't a dead set requirement and you can't enforce it, it's going to be more of a policy or a goal that the city's trying to establish for its merchants. You get a little concerned with competitiveness, and if one merchant is gonna do the right thing and raise the age, are the others gonna be picking up more business? So there's really a financial incentive if it's done that way to those that aren't following what the city wants. But I don't think I can give you a good answer on that. I would have to look into it, how the other cities are structuring it, and unless there's a financial incentive, I really don't know how it would work.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Mayor?
Councilmember?
So what committee would you anticipate this going to? What category would it fit into?
Public safety? Or administration?
Okay. Bingo either way.
Councilmember?
Thank you, Your Honor. I do want to state to Councilmember Rocks, what I said was not gospel. I am not sure how
I
it
know.
works. I've just been curious as cities are doing this and kind of watching and listening, so I apologize to anyone if I've given the wrong information, but I would love to know more about it. Thanks.
What's great about cities is that we often are ahead of the curve when it comes to the legislature and what gets done in this state. This is not unprecedented. A few years back when cities around the state were creating ordinances to now not allow smoking in bars and public places like that, that was going on all over the state. And we had that discussion here in this council chamber, whether we wanted to pursue that. It was our belief at that time that headway was being made at the legislature, and that, you know, we're gonna, at that time, perceive that we were gonna tear a part of our community apart, when if we just waited out 18 months, there was a state law. That's exactly what happened, and we had the state law. And so we might want to weigh whether or not, I know this is gaining momentum at the legislature. There's been legislation, introduced. Of course, it's adjourned now, but I see now that cities are adopting, particularly in the metropolitan area, that'll be something that'll be raised more at the legislature, and it may be decided at that venue. And so I kind of agree with Councilmember Vaughn that I think it is a state issue for all communities to be involved, and I think sooner or later it will be addressed. But we can, again, Council, I want to make sure that we approve the Rudy's thing, and that we can have discussion on another night. Councilmember Brox.
And I'm just seeking information, so I'm happy for any information anybody volunteers. Councilmember Liefeld, I'm not intending to disrespect you at all. I just want to understand for my own sake what it is that we're proposing. And I think maybe it was the analogy to the sex offender ordinance that made me recoil immediately. So I'm fully ready and able to handle any difficult issue that you want to send to my committees.
Wouldn't be there first. Wouldn't be here first. Okay, Council, let's revert back to the tobacco license. That motion is before us. Is there any further discussion to that particular item? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have comments from the audience. Is there any comments from the audience this evening? Okay, seeing none. Council, announcements? Announcements? Councilmember Folger.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have more of a concern, and I know this sounds just so petty, but I have to bring it up. I have been noticing that along Vermillion Street, along Highway 61, a problem that we had last year was that we had really bad weeds that grew all over the place. And one of the big problems that we identified was that the sand that had accumulated from over the winter, that never got swept away, or it got washed back or something happened, but there was a lot of sand, and that's where a lot of the weeds were growing, was in that sand, that additional sand. And I've noticed that Vermillion hasn't been swept again. And when I had talked to MnDOT about it last year, it's their responsibility, so I know it's not our our crew that hasn't done it, but I'd like just to bring it up and ask that the Public Works Director follow up with MinDOT to try to keep them on top of it. You know, if they're gonna sweep it, and it's their responsibility to ask them to sweep it, and if they can't for some reason, to try to find a solution to it. And then last year, for whatever reason, they only chose to, spray the weeds once, and so they said that they would look at spraying twice this year. And so just to keep up on that, so we don't have waist-high weeds down the medians again this summer. So.
Okay, we'll make sure staff, we coordinate with Nick on that and
Thanks.
give him those 2 points. Thank you. Any other announcements? Any other announcements? Okay. Seeing none, we have a few things coming up on tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Filing for city offices will close, so those who are interested in council at large or the mayor's position, if you want to file for office, you have until 5 p.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, June 5th. At 5:30 tomorrow, at Levy Park is the summer kickoff celebration. I'm looking forward to it, so I'm going to be there. We'll have a wide variety of fun things to do as we welcome the start of summer. So for families, it's a great family event down at the pavilion tomorrow at 5:30. At 6 p.m., interviews for the Planning Commission will be held tomorrow for the vacancies on the Planning Commission. Monday, June 11th, the Planning Commission will be meeting next at 7 p.m. And on that same evening, a week from tonight, on June 11th, the City Council will have a workshop in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we'll have that discussion at that time, at 7 p.m. On Tuesday, June 12th, at 6:30 is a hedgerow workshop. And on that same evening, at 6:30, that same evening, Tuesday, June 12th, at 7 p.m., the Parks and Recreation Commission will be meeting. On Thursday, June 14th, at 6:30 is the hedgerow meeting, the monthly hedgerow meeting. And then on Monday, June 18th at 5:30, City Council will be meeting at another workshop with the 2019 budget. And then following that at 7 p.m. is our next regularly scheduled City Council meeting on Monday, June 18th. Just a reminder, 4th of July is not too far away, a month away. And so therefore our calendar for July has changed. The City Council will be meeting in July on the Monday, July 9th and Monday, July 26th. On the alternate Mondays, be approximately what, the 7th, 16th, and 16th and 23rd, the Planning Commission will be meeting. So council meetings in July will be 9th and right. Okay, July 9th and 26th, council, and then 16th and 23rd, Planning Commission. Okay, so no other item is before this body. A motion to adjourn is in order. Councilmember Lightfeld makes a motion to adjourn, seconded by Councilmember Vaughn. All those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails, and we are adjourned. Thank you.